In the summer of 2024, 12 of the greatest minds in the history of video game development, design, and theory gathered in the woods of Southern Oregon to discuss the modern gaming industry and the emergence of artificial intelligence technology. This is a series of conversations between old friends, old men now, men who have shaped the gaming world as we know it today, and whose innovations will continue to influence how we play for generations to come. Episode 10 on the resounding impact of video games on society, culture, and humanity.
Well, then let's get moving here. Sid had the question about that's the Gordon Walton Memorial Chair.
What's wrong with my head? You gotta be left. You shouldn't be sitting in the
Sid, I believe, was the one who asked the question about what the effect of games as a whole has been on society. And so let's wait until he shows up to address that one. In the meantime, I have one that I think we can address in a fairly short period of time, and that concerns us. That is, are we dinosaurs? Has the industry changed so much that we are simply obsolete? That is, here's another way of putting it. When I was raised, does anybody remember the song, odd og, half turtle and half frog?
Oh, yeah, I felt familiar.
Commercial for a toy which looked kind of like a turtle, only it had claws sticking out, and you rolled a ball towards it, and if you hit him in the center, he would roll forward a few inches, but if you hit one of his claws, he would make a sound and go away.
That scared the shit out
I was given one as a present, and that's the last thing I wanted. Strength and play.
You seem traumatized.
Yeah.
I don't know the story.
Kathy, it was not
Oh,
fun.
wait, Kathy has a...
There's videos of it. Go look at videos of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I told her we have one of the things in the pods. So somebody's ground coffee, drink coffee.
It was ground for drip.
Actually.
Okay, please.
I need coffee. Thank you.
It's wonderful coffee. And I'm making the last pot right now.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody who
I just dumped it into your bag. Sorry.
Just 40 years ago, we were dinosaurs in one ecosystem. That the kinds of games we were making, the channels for selling it, it was a fairly kind of uniform pool. Now I feel like the world has diversified to dozens and dozens of different ecosystems.
So, are we dinosaurs in all of them?
I feel like I'm dinosaurs in most of them, but there are at least a few where I'm still not a dinosaur.
We're birds, and if we fly high enough, we're beyond all that, and we can carry on the dinosaur legacy.
You're gonna become chickens.
Yeah.
We're as fossilized as we want to be, I think.
Yeah. There's.
When I turned 50, I had this am I ever going to do something for pool again? And then we did a thing, did Skylanders. And that wasn't for my audience. That was for the youngest audience that existed. But in terms of, I think we speak to definitely people like us. I think we also speak to other people who are different ages and, sort of different backgrounds, but not all of them. So I think the days of us being able to speak to all gamers with one game is long gone because the audience got big and diverse.
Yeah.
But there's definitely people out there who want to see your game. Finding them is a job, and being content with the size you're going to get is also, we sort of have some of my games only appeal to a few thousand people.
Yeah.
So, wow. But yeah, there's people out there who want to see your games.
Okay.
Hey, Gordon, say something?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, that was about the previous thing. Yeah, so Team Rodent is the other great Disney book by Heiss, where he gets into all the underbelly of Disney. No, but it's retooling, right? You either retool or you are a dinosaur. Either you relearn, and it's really disgusting because, what do we all want? We want mastery. I want to be a master of all I survey. I want that sense of mastery. And our business, I think, is a business of you better be prepared to go back down to ignorance and crawl back up to competence fairly frequently.
Well, let me point out a problem with that, though. When we started, you had to master Apple II, or maybe Atari, or C64, but these were easy machines. You could master them in a matter of a few months. Nowadays, the amount of technology is expanding. It's doubling every few years. And so there is no way anybody on the planet has kept up with microcomputer technology.
It's much worse than that. It's much worse than the tech. The tech is not actually the least hard part in my view.
What
The
is,
ecosystem, the customers are the hard part.
yeah,
Demographics.
And
yeah.
as we get more disconnected from the core audience, it's harder and harder
That's true.
to look at it and be relevant and say, okay, now can I really put myself in their shoes? Can I really understand who they are and what they want? Right? Because unless I'm just making it as a masturbatory, exercise,
Like me, yeah.
or whatever. but then that's one way to do it. That's art. But everybody here is a commercial artist. And we're really all crassly commercial, trying to sneak in a little art along the way. That's our that's who's actually here.
That
right?
raises.
This is not the art group. This is the crassly commercial trying to sneak some cool art in.
Well, that raises another question. That raises another question, and that is, at your age, are you nearing a point where you want to say, I got more money than I can spend, and I've done a lot of interesting games, but now I need to leave a legacy? Any feelings like that?
You want a legacy, but Rod had his hand.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
But it's never enough, Rod. That's absolutely not. No matter what you do, what do you want to do? You want to one-up yourself. You want to do it again.
I agree with Gordon that there was between like an iPhone or a console or a PC, that's nothing compared to the difference in demographics that we're dealing with now. To that, from a designer's point of view, do I narrowcast to this specific demographic? Do I try to come up with something that's, wider net? That's a much more difficult design call.
Yeah. So I think this was one of the questions that was on the pre-list. So those I studied for. So I think it.
Wait, no, I don't see this on your hand. I don't see the.
Right. My notebook. So the two things that I wrote down before, something I've done a lot of, and I think some of you guys know, is if you're not teaching, you should be.
Yeah.
Everybody in this group should probably stand in front of, a collection of 18 to 24-year-olds at least once a year from now on. Just do it for a couple of reasons. Number one is we need to pass that stuff on. We don't know what to pass off. They do. Number two is anybody who has done it, it is an injection of energy.
Yes.
That is better than any Red Bull ever. So I would say do that, and I have found it to be incredibly rewarding, and I definitely learn as much as I teach. Every single time. So that's number one. Number two is we have some problems we have created. We may not take a terrible amount of responsibility for those problems, but we have some problems we've created, and I think that it's probably time for some of this group to look at those things. So for me, clean play is, all right, we're a source of, a billion kilograms of carbon per year is the result of just the console business.
Wow.
I think I should do something about that if I can. And I think there are other things, misogyny and some of the other characteristics that are not our best look, that we can do some things about. And in particular, we can do some things about by stating that that's not good and other things are. So we have a kind of moral authority. Some of us still do at some level. We don't have, it's not infinite. You don't get to say 25 things, but you probably get to say a couple and they'll get heard. But get out, teach. And then number one, and then number two is maybe look at some of the problems we left behind and clean them up so that somebody else doesn't have to.
The
good news is you don't get to decide what your legacy is. That's decided by the people who show up after you're dead. And so just keep swinging away at what fascinates you. until you can't swing anymore, and then take smaller swings. Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but making games for me makes me joyful and makes me feel good to wake up in the morning. And that's what I'm going to do. And who knows what people are going to like or not like or get mad at me about. And that'll change over time. And eventually, a couple of generations down, I'll be completely forgotten. And that's okay. There'll be a lot. The world's going to be full of other people who will need some space. So I say just fill your life with as much creative output as you can.
Yeah. Oh, Don.
Yeah, I would echo a couple of those things because I do think this is a time that we can be giving back, take buckets back to the top of the cliff and pour them in for other people to float down on just as we floated up there. And I think as well for me, I feel the same sense of excitement about games I'm working on now as I felt. I remember when I stopped working on schoolwork in '71 because I discovered the computer and I couldn't think about my schoolwork. I was thinking about what I was going to try and do the next day. I get that same excitement now, except I don't have to try to graduate from college at the same time. And and I know what the next project is after the current one. I'm very excited about that. I've learned the discipline of not being preoccupied with it. I had to be preoccupied with the current project. But I look at Titian, who was productive and artist into his 90s, in a situation where health was a much more tenuous thing in his era. And I know the best work I've ever done. I have work that is respected. I'm deeply grateful for that from 30, 40, 50 years ago. The best work I've ever done is in the last 10 years. I turned 72 this year. In the last 10 years, I know it's the highest quality work I've ever done. Acceptance, popularity are different, but you have your own internal meter. It can change over time. And I know the best work is the last 10 years. So that powers me. I don't, at this point, as long as health allows me to, I intend to keep doing this. And I love it as much now as I did when I was a 19-year-old who had no idea this would be my career. The passion feels eerily the same, for whatever reason.
I don't think anybody is still doing this right now unless they love it. But back to Rich's point, we've all given talks to aspiring game designers, developers, whatever. I found that over the years, I used to get up and I talk in the middle of the Q&A at the end. Now I try to leave more and more room from the Q&A because I'm actually learning more from the questions than I'm probably teaching to the audience, which I can then incorporate to the next talk or whatever. But, the learning thing is a two-way street. And it's amazing to hear the questions I get from aspiring game developers that never would have thought they were concerned with that at all,
By the way, well, it is all of the recruiting that I did at EA, CMU, and all those other schools, they were all the result of questions. So
yeah,
guys that I wanted were always the guys or ladies who asked that question. It was like, that's a fucking good question.
Yeah.
The kiss your ass questions, I don't care about that. It was the guy who, asked, you did this and this. Did you think about the ramifications? This is like, I never considered any of that crap. You've been thinking about that? You're amazing.
Yeah, these are the guys in the trenches that got the butt in their rifle, and you're turning,
And so it's very gratifying, A, but B, if you're actually trying to hire people, those questions are gold. They will tell you who you want in the room. It is not hard to figure out who to hire in a CMU class. It just is not hard. You have one of those classes, you get one question and answer session, you got three people that are 3 steps above everybody else in the room, and it's obvious. So that's also compelling, by the way, is just finding those people, because they're going to make the games we get to play in the future. We don't have to make.
Yeah. So I guess I would add that, like, not feeling like a dinosaur and not becoming a dinosaur are different aspects. And to me, it's like I'm in this business like others. I don't have to work. I do this because of the craftsmanship. I love it. And people, when does your agreement with Microsoft expire? Expired years ago. But what director, is like, I don't want to make films anymore. They go as long as, and I think if you're really in the craftsmanship, you want to keep going. But part of that is to remain super curious, about things. And I feel bad for some people that they've been in the business a long time and they want to get a job, but they haven't really looked at anything, that's happened in the last really 3 years. I mean, 10 years doesn't even matter anymore because they say when you graduate from college, like, half the knowledge you learn is already obsolete and that kind of stuff. But the knowledge becomes so obsolete. So if you're not learning all the time and moving quickly, and the question part of it, these guys are talking about, absolutely true. When I've always said when I talk to my younger people, is like I do learn from them every single time. So I always go, this is a two-way street. I'm talking to you, but I'm listening so I can learn. And so I think that, if you want to keep doing it, you just got to really stay on top of what's happening. And what are the nuances, the technologies, all the dialogues that are going on in the industry. There's so many different aspects to it if you want to continue to do it. And I would add that Alfred Hitchcock had his biggest movie ever when it was like 60. So I think The Birds was his biggest one, or Psycho, one of the two. It's never too late.
Are you finding it more and more difficult to keep up with the expanding sphere of knowledge?
Well, yeah, everybody is. That's the good part. It's an exponential rate that no human brain could ever comprehend it all. So I'm okay with that. But anyways, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly, I alternate, sometimes moment to moment, much less day to day, between, oh my God, I am a dinosaur and this stuff, there's no way I'm going to keep up and nobody remembers any of this stuff, to elation of, God, I'm doing such cool work and this sort of thing. But, to echo or to take a different spin on things, this niche that I've found that I like so much of the medical stuff, partly it's because it narrows it down so I don't have to learn quite as much. Partly it's because neuroscientists are finding out what games are doing into our heads that all of us are fascinated about, and it's fun that way. Part of it is paying it back and making games that are healthy for people, all those sorts of things. But I'll confess to this group, another piece of it is that the money for this sort of thing, it is sort of like the early 80s, as I've said, also in terms of the budgets. But that also means that the scale of games that they do is a lot more like the ones that I loved doing in the 80s and early 90s, and not the 300-person AAA things. And I enjoy that. And one other thing, what's totally different than the 80s is the medical field is, you get 20-year-olds, you get 80-year-old doctors, you get equal men and women, you get, people of all races. It's just way, way more diverse and reflective of the population than games. And that's really fun. I mean, one of the teams I'm on, I'm actually right around the middle of the age range for the team working on this stuff, of like the 8 of us. I think I'm right in the middle.
I think there's I think there's an incredibly important reason I'm deeply disturbed about it. Sorry. Go. The student loan context that these kids are operating in guarantees that anybody who's gone through a major program, CMU or UCMU, is coming out with $250,000 of debt. You have $250,000 in debt. You are taking no fucking chances. None. So the challenge is we have so burdened exactly the people that we want to go out and take risks with the anti-risk venom. I know, but the difference is that they now think that's the price of admission because many of the publishers said it is. And so now they're starting $250,000 in debt. They're not going to go make Genova Chin stuff. They're going to go try and get on Call of Duty because they can get paid.
Well, I think a couple things. First is,
right,
the people who can really do 0 to 1 are a much smaller proportion of the population than we understand, because all people who can do 0 to 1. So who do we see what we are, right? And the fact is that if you went to, no matter what class you went to, there's 1 or 2 people in that 30 or 40 people that you're talking to who would ever be able to do it. It's almost intrinsic to who they are. It's not, and Rich is totally right. The schools, our public school system pounds into people conformance, and here's the checklist to get what you want, not a love of learning, not a natural curiosity. They beat the shit out of your curiosity and force it into whatever tracks they have, and like we're all of the age of, it's a Socrates quote, right? The more I know, the more I realize I know nothing, right? Our thing is, and we have that going against us, along with this rapid pace of shit coming at us, right? So much information coming at us, and we already have figured out, oh shit, yeah, as much as we have a lot of ego involved with how much we know, we realize we only know a tiny fraction of what there is to know, even about the things that we care about. And so we're in a double bind, right? It's like two curves that are not going in the right. They're not going to converge. They're going to get more divergent as we get older.
With all the new things that are coming down the pike, I think that the thing that does give us an advantage is there is a wisdom as to how it can be applied to our craft that they don't have. I mean, I talk to a lot of AI scientists and things, and they'll tell me how AI can be used in a game, and I'll think completely boring, and our players will hate it.
You give them Activision's card to call. Oh, not anymore.
So, but in their mind, it sounds great, and I can see from their perspective, it sounds pretty great. But I also know from a user experience perspective that my users would hate that, and most of the users. And so we do have that advantage of thinking up from a game designer and from a consumer perspective also, because that's what we wouldn't be here if we didn't have some commercial success. That's part of the equation.
We've also been through several KT extinction events, all the way back to the Atari crash, then the CD-ROM, 3D graphics chips. So we've seen these, new technological cycles and how they end up deploying. A lot of people coming in now, AI is the first thing they've seen. Oh wow, now how do we apply this? So we have some hopefully wisdom, but we can have a role as teachers or mentors, but we can also have a role as targets.
Yeah.
All right. So somebody says, "Oh, I really liked what Don did. I'm going to be, follow that path, and not necessarily make the games that Don's worked on, but it's now, especially the competitive ones, which are the ones that you really want. I'm going after you, Don. I'm going to beat your legacy."
I have a pile of those, maybe more than any of you guys do. The sports business, just everybody's do it.
Competitive.
Yeah, it's.
Go ahead.
So I talked to a lot of classes of kids, right? So I did that at least 4 times a year, sometimes more, multiple universities. When last week I was at Full Sail, before this.
Right.
So the number one thing that the kids always ask is, tell me how you became this so I can become that. It's like, oh shit, yeah, my role, my path is never going to be your path because of different time and place, right? Yeah, and what they're really asking for is not the cheat. They just want a path. They just want any direction to try to make a career out of it, or to try to become what they're imagining that whatever the job is that they think the job is. They think what game design is one thing, what game design is another. Same for every programming, whatever. Right?
You see the taillights in the dark. They don't.
I think typically they actually look more for philosophy than a recipe.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
I do apologize.
Go ahead.
Whole finger.
Don,
It's interesting because I find a lot of times I get to talk, because of the AIS program, I get to talk to our scholars each year. And I found about a third of the questions I get asked by the scholars are diverse questions, but the answer is something that several of you have already said, which is continual learning.
Yeah.
Is the idea of embracing continual learning and accepting whatever I'm doing right now that is knowledge-based. Most of that knowledge will be useless in 5 or 10 years, and I will have had to reinvent myself, which is exciting and fun. If that's not exciting and fun, this may be a problem. But the attitude of continual learning and being able to let go and grow feathers and fly to the next level, that's the answer to about a third of the questions I get, but there are all sorts of different questions.
Well,
But the answer is still saying like that.
I'm always say the continual learning thing, but I say it's not necessarily sufficient to get you in, but it's essential to keep you in the industry. It's something we all have in common, or we'd be like the friends we have that just said, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Artists I know that did pixel shading things, that just didn't want to learn any other method.
They make the 3D cut.
Yeah.
I call them the sane people. They went sane. Right. The rest of us have not managed to do this. You're still here.
Yeah.
And that's a,
I get to.
Continuous learning thing is interesting. So, Rod, you and I share, I hit with the elements here, don't have college education.
Nope. I went to college. There we agree.
All right. Well, so for me, what that meant was that I'm not done. And so the kind of lifelong learning for me was just like I didn't finish that, so I keep the kind of psychological compulsion to keep doing. And this industry does seem to have a lot of folks who kind of like didn't finish college in it, and so I wonder if that's some of that secret sauce is we just never finished. A lot of people when they finish college are like, I'm done now, I'm done learning. We just
Well, I think it's like they found more effective ways to learn.
There's that. Well, we also learned that what they taught us in school was fucking worthless to what we wanted to do.
I wonder if we have less distractions too. I mean, I don't think we get probably succumb as much to watching TikTok videos for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I don't get distracted by things, but I see the younger generation really, and I'm not saying I would be a bit any better or different, but they get, I mean, just playing multiplayer games, playing Fortnite, Call of Duty, we didn't have all those things, and I don't really do those things now.
The younger generation doesn't. I tend to take a very negative view and thank God these kids are useless because they don't read. They have no, I shouldn't say exaggerated. They have much higher expectations of their own material well-being. When I was their age, I walked to school 5 miles every day through the snow, uphill, both ways, yeah. But actually, I did live in a farm worker's shack for several years, and the only transportation I had was a motorcycle, which I had to use in the rain, and Kathy and I mean, we lived a very frugal life. We never went out to movies, couldn't afford it. For us, a big night out would be Baskin Robbins, but that was a different time, and we expect that people get better, that our children, have it better. Washington once said, "I am a soldier so that my children can be farmers and engineers, and their children can be poets and painters." That's the way of the world, but I don't think the younger people appreciate. They feel like they're worse off than my generation, and they aren't. They're a hell of a lot better off.
They only have 8.
Yeah, so but what bothers me the most is they are not educated. They don't educate themselves. They watch TikTok, where I read books. And in fact, I'm sure most of us have already read more books than any of these younger people will read in their entire lives. And that shows up in their overall ignorance. Notice how people have referred to evolutionary theory, neuroanatomy. Somebody said something about economics. I mean, this group really knows a hell of a lot about the world, not just computers, not just games, everything else. And I think that's something that I'm just not seeing any interest in from the younger people I've interacted with. So, yeah, Don.
I think part of it too is not making assumptions about ourselves or others when the generational changes come. When 2D went 3D and suddenly publishers, oh no, everything has to be 3D. Why would you do 2D anymore? Mm-hmm. We went through that period. Yeah. We did training for our art staff who had not had any 3D experience, just to say, okay, new challenge. As a company, as a studio, just saying, oh, that's your issue isn't right. So we had support for that. I had one wonderfully gifted artist who said, that's not for me, and he quit. God bless him. He and I are still good friends. Another of our artists was a nationally renowned landscape painter who probably could have made a living just doing landscapes, but he liked coming to work each day and being with people and doing things, and he had a better lifestyle doing that as well.
he turned out to be arguably our best sculptor. He had not done a lot of 3D. He'd done a little 3D before, but primarily he was a landscape painter. And then he turns out to be this brilliant sculptor that does all these things. And I'm going there thinking, if you asked me to handicap that at the start, I would have said he's smart, he's gifted, he can learn anything. But no, he's not going to be our best sculptor. And then it just reminded me to not assume.
Yeah.
Because none of us knows, including about ourselves, because limiting ourselves is assuming we can't when it may be that we can.
Okay. I'm
Intention with what you're saying about the next generation, or generation that's below us. They just watch TikTok, they don't learn anything. But my youngest kid has learned far more on YouTube than he's ever learned in school. And about very specific interests, that he's very motivated to learn. I used to read, I tell him a story every night before bed when he was about 8 or 9. And I read this book about the cholera epidemic in London in 1849 called Ghost Map. It was a great book about how this doctor figured out, by analyzing all the wells. And I was finding the story. There was this bad outbreak in London, and this doctor started figuring out, forgot the doctor's name, and my 8-year-old said, "Oh, it's John Snow." It was like, how do you know that? Oh, I saw a whole YouTube video about it. You say that these kids, they live such an easy life. That's not going to be true for much longer. With climate change and a lot of other things, we are living in a world
7 and 1.5
in a hell of a mess.
Yeah, I agree.
And and a lot of them, not most of them, but a lot of them see that coming, and they are the ones actually concerned with sustainable development, etc. So I don't want to give a blanket.
And they don't think that we're a source of wisdom about their future.
No, we left them that mess. Yeah.
Well, so I want to go back to a positive, clear suggestion to people if they want to be better creators, and that's to stop spending all their time consuming it. I've met a lot of people who said, I've played every game, and I spend all this time playing games, and playing games is awesome. I love it. But if you want to be a creative person, you actually have to devote a lot of your time just to doing that. And also being, maybe this is old person talk, but being bored. Being bored is what triggers you to think about new stuff. And at least for me, putting myself in a non-stimulatory environment, walking around in the world is stimulatory, but getting away from the exact thing I'm making, like I'm not playing games all the time because then
Woodshedding.
But I think if you think that consuming something is training for making it, then it's just a tiny piece of it.
It's a foundation, getting for high school.
Right, if that was true, eating would make us all great cooks.
So spending chunks of time every day doing something to generate an object or an idea or words or just sort of training yourself to be productive was, for me, very, very helpful. And I used to read constantly. And it's not that I don't want to read. It's just that time I'm now doing other things that allow me to be productive and allow me to make creative projects. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm really irritated about blaming the victim. Oh, they're terrible, yada, yada, yada. They're all victims. They're victims. We didn't, we let that happen to them. We didn't, almost all of us, somewhere along the way in our schooling, actually had a good teacher who actually triggered something in us to be curious and not hammered us down and made us fit our round peg to their square hole, right? And that little bit, it didn't take a whole lot of encouragement for us to, take that and then to go, oh yeah, and I don't care about this other stuff anymore. I only care about that. But these kids have gone through a system which is not conducive to critical thinking outside the box, doing anything creative, truly, right? It's like, line up, stay in line, answer the questions as they're given, do the right multiple choice. Here's exactly how you're going to succeed. If you just do this, you will succeed. they are all handicapped, is the way I look at it. It's like making fun of retarded people. Don't make fun of retarded people. They can't help being retarded. We need to help them. We need to not just say, oh, yeah, it's terrible that they're no good. No, a whole bunch of people have been encouraged to do stuff that is not going to be within their capacity, too. That's the other half. It's like a double whammy. It's a double whammy on them. You know, we take them and tell them, oh, pat them on the head and go, you can do whatever you want to do. That may not be what they're here to do. That may not be what they're actually constituted to be great at. And it's just, to me, it's challenging. It's terrible to just say, though, oh, look at them, they're terrible. We gave them TikTok. We gave them all this stuff to do.
Is curiosity unteachable?
I don't think it's unteachable, but I think it's suppressible. And I think that's what I'm saying.
I agree with that.
They literally got their curiosity stomped on so many times that the truly curious can overcome that, right? Eventually. But anybody who had a spark, literally the system is designed to put the spark out.
I was brought up.
Kid has Library of Congress in their pocket right now.
Yeah.
Easily, you know. The whole problem with education is motivation. It's not access to knowledge. You know, kids get motivated if they're motivated at a particular thing.
Not even best teachers, because you can go find the best teacher teaching something online now.
Yeah, but the motivation is the key to it. You know.
I went through Catholic schools, so I know something about sparks of creativity being burnt out, and I survived. So, but you had some.
You're irascible creatures by nature.
To your point about all the non-game kind of expertise that has popped up around the circle this weekend, I mean, I can think back to times when my work made me have to become an expert overnight on Japanese mythology or overnight on World War I battleships. And I don't do a lot of talking to classes and the like, but when I do, you know, inevitably there's the how do I become a game designer question. And what I usually say is, you know, playing games is important, but really becoming a generalist, having like a little bit of knowledge about everything is a huge help. And also know how to super quickly become an expert is a skill that you need.
I have training. So I always thought about that is penetrating the subculture. Part of our, especially if you're a generalist in this business, like 1999, I had to go become an expert on the golf business, and I don't look like the character of that. But over time, it's one of those things where I kind of got good at just being able to enter other subcultures, understand what was important, how they worked, what the sources of expertise are. And I kind of did that, I think, dozens of times in dozens of different cases, from military sims to sports products to, you know, crazy Richard Garriott stuff all over the map. And that process, I think, is that.
Yes, and I don't think it's, you need to learn to be like that. I think it's, why do you want to become a game designer? And I think that's the benefit of it. I enjoy doing simulations because I can dive into ant colonies or urban dynamics or global climate or whatever, because I enjoy diving deep on specific subjects. So when somebody says, how do I become a game designer? You ask why. They say, I like playing games. Okay, but that's not why if you want to be a game designer, that's not a reason to become a game designer. If you like learning, whatever interests, whatever motivates you, that's a reason to become a game designer.
Yeah, what Steve described is one of the things I do, is that I talk about profiles of game designers, because it's amazing how narrow game designers are in some ways, including being interested in all sorts of stuff and being at least a little knowledgeable about many things and having dived deep into several things. I mean, I was with Hal Barwood working on something, and I said, oh, there's a bug getting in, so that's no bug, and he gave me the Latin name. And I said, did you study entomology? And he had a phobia about bugs, so he got over it by learning everything he could about insects. And it didn't surprise me. I mean, if you ask him about optics, he was a filmmaker, but he could tell you everything about how the cameras were made too, because he got really curious. and it didn't surprise me that he ended up, leaving movies and making games. So some of it, I hate to do this to people, but sometimes they say, I want to be a game designer, and they don't have that kind of curiosity. And I would love to be able to spark that, but sometimes I say, wow, you're actually really extroverted. Maybe you would be a better game producer, or I kind of try and fit them in so that they can be in the industry. But and I've had a few cases where I've gotten pretty good at taking young people. There was in fact, exactly that, a programmer designer who was not happy with her work, and she's a successful producer now, partly because I told her I thought that might be better. And conversely, I've had others where I just said there was a QA person who I said, you have the mind of a designer. She basically it was what the asking questions thing. She just came up to me with some questions about what I was doing. And I said, so how long have you been a game designer? So I'm just a QA specialist. And I said, yeah, no, you're a game designer who's doing QA. You need to do more game design. So finding those people and encouraging them, it makes me feel guilty because the ones that want to do it sometimes either don't understand it or they just don't have the kind of chops for it.
Yeah, so unfortunately, what we teach children is, you got to have something, then you got to do it, and then you're going to be it. And the truth is, it's the other way around. Somebody walks up and says, I want to be a game designer. Well, design games. Be a game designer. Start doing it.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll have the position. But it's not the other way around. Oh, if I get the right training and if I have the right mentor, and eventually I'll learn, sit at the foot of the master and learn stuff, and one day they'll let me hold the thing that actually makes me a game designer. No, just do it. Stop waiting for somebody to give you permission.
Join us next time for a conversation on the ever-changing landscape of the gaming industry.